So this is weird. So I was pursuing music for a long time. I love music. This was like my full-time career. 2 years into marriage, and I feel like God says, all right, Dustin, now it's time to become a magician. I'm like, are you 12? I'm just a magician? Like, I might as well just come out and tell my parents, guys, I'm about to be a pirate. Like, it's not a thing that people take serious. So I'm like, all right. Thankfully, my wife is like super on board. The only problem is that we had like $12. And we had been doing ministry stuff and just like really believing for God. So when this happens, to become a magician, we didn't have much. Like, we hadn't been really building a career. I don't know if you guys, I said I was a musician, so you guys know that means I had $12, right? I was like trying to figure out like what, and I'm a musician with $12. Now I'm supposed to be a magician? Like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna do a birthday party for gas money? Like, I don't even, so I'm in this space, I'm like, all right, and I remember I was at a CVS, and I had this idea for a card trick that I wanted to do, and I needed 2 of the same playing card, meaning I needed to buy 2 decks of cards. Like, if I buy 2 decks, that's gonna be like $8, and we have like $12. But for some reason, I feel like God is saying this, and it feels so strange. Like, it feels like, I don't understand, like, am I making this up? Because this would be the weirdest thing to make up. Like, I have the worst discernment if God's not telling me to be a magician. But so, like, I get the 2 decks of cards, and I remember I went home, and I'm like, I tell my wife, I'm like, babe, I know it sounds crazy, but I just felt like I was supposed to buy these 2 decks of playing cards, so good luck eating lunch tomorrow. And it was just one of those moments where it was like everything we had, and I had no idea that those 2 decks of cards would lead me to win a fake $1 million. And but the thing is like, this set us on a course that was like, all right, God, I think this is like the step of faith. So around this time, my wife, she's out for a run, and she comes back, and she's like, yo, this is super crazy. But she's like, I wrote this in my phone. She's like, God just spoke this word that you're gonna win America's Got Talent. And I was like, magic for 3 days. All right, let's. She's like, no, you're gonna win. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm kind of like laughing, thinking this is funny. Well, I just happened to be talking to a friend that I had from when I was doing music stuff, and she had just done a movie with Tyra Banks. Tyra Banks at the time was the host of America's Got Talent. And she's like, hey, Dustin, what's been going on? I just did this movie with Tyra. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've been kind of thinking about America's Got Talent. And what's cool about AGT is that you like demonstrate your talent, but then they always show like the person's story and all this stuff. And I'm like, yo, we can go on and talk about like the homeless ministry we've done, the missions we've done. I'm like, I should just try and come up with some cool magic tricks that would be like good enough for the stage, but then we like sneak attack them with like testimonies from Jesus, right? So I was like, they're gonna put me on stage, and then in my interview, I'm gonna be like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. So I'm like, all right. And then she told me this Tyra Banks thing. I'm like, this is crazy. So she was like, so why don't you just send me some stuff that you have, and I'll send it to Tyra because I'm having lunch with Tyra in a couple days. And I'm like, yeah, cool, perfect. And I hang up. I'm like, stuff that I have? This is the 6th day of me being a magician. What do I have? And so at that time, we had moved to Texas, and we worked for this ministry, this organization that had an auditorium with like, a stage and all that stuff. And so I had this idea. I don't want to say that we broke into the place, but someone left it unlocked. And so we went in with some friends. We found out how to turn the lights on. It's the middle of the night. We're up on this stage, and we're just like faking magic tricks, right? And filming this stuff. Like, I'm like, all right, and then I'm going to give you this, and you just go, oh, right? So, and then at one point I was like, wait, I kind of know a little bit with like computer graphics editing. So I was like, we should make a drummer appear on stage. So I like had a mic. My wife doesn't even do music stuff, but like we're pretending to sing. And then we like lift up this thing and drop it. And then I edit it so it looked like a drummer just appeared on the stage. But then I was like, okay, now even better, because they got to believe this. I went on YouTube and found a bunch of like footage from other events and took the crowd shots and edited in with my performance shots. So it looked like I was performing for all these big crowds instead of looking like I just broke into Jesus's house. So I send them this fake video, and my friend, he's actually like, wow, Tyra like really loved this. She sent this to the producers. They want to meet you. They want to have you perform for them. I'm like, sweet. Wait, no, not sweet. I just did fake magic. I can't. So anyways, like, in this time, we just feel like we're getting like all the words of the Lord, right? And I'm just trying to prepare for this thing. Like, God's speaking to us about America's Got Talent, speaking to us about the testimonies as we're getting ready to prepare. So my wife, for a lot of you guys who heard her story last year, she had just a wild, wild, crazy testimony. She was never supposed to be able to get pregnant because of some of the stuff that she has been through. She got pregnant. And I'm like, oh, snap, we're about to go on to AGT. And like, she wasn't supposed to get pregnant, but then Jesus, right? And so we get there, and Carrie's pregnant, and I'm doing the math, and I'm like, yo, I'm pretty sure people are pregnant for 9 months. By the time we get onto the show, when we make it into the live rounds, like she's gonna have the baby, and I'm like, this is what a crazy, like compelling, like America's gonna see us have a baby. They're not gonna see us have a baby. They're not gonna like watch the birthing process, but they will like see a baby. They won't see the baby. You know what I'm saying. So I'm like, this is like the best. God, your timing is insane. And so I go into the audition, and I didn't know you should practice first. And so the trick was just whatever. And they sent me to the story producer, and this is where like, all right, I'm about to crush this part, right? Because we got testimonies for days. So I'm talking to the producer. Most people are in there for like 5 minutes, just hearing a quick backstory. I was in there talking to this chick for an hour about Jesus and the love of God and all the things that God's done in our lives. And I'm like so proud, right? Like I walk out of this, I'm like, oh my gosh, God, your timing, like Tyra Banks got us this. My friend just happened to be in this movie. Like this is nothing that I could have orchestrated, right? Even you saying to be a magician, and then now we're here, like this is crazy. And so we're like super excited, and we're praying, and we're thanking God. A couple weeks later, we had a phone call from the one producer I met with, and she was like, look, we like really like you, and your story's super interesting, but you're not good. and I was like, in that moment, I was like so defeated, because I was like, wait, God, I thought this was the plan. Like you just teed this up so perfectly. It actually makes less sense that I'm not on after how awesome everything was. Like I sat in there for an hour talking about you. Like I feel like our motives were right. And then that next week, we were on like an outreach, and we were sharing at one of our churches that we used to go to in California. And we're sharing about like my wife being pregnant and just some of our dreams. Even though I didn't get on AGT, we're just, this is part of the testimony we were going to share. And I was like, well, now we don't even get to say that. We speak at that church. That night, we go home, and my wife miscarries. And we were like way too far along to have miscarried, right? Like we were just in the safe zone. And I remember it was like, again, that moment where like I didn't know if there was more layers. And I'm like, God, I thought maybe that you were doing this thing. I thought we were going to start a family. Like I thought, like I was excited to be a dad. I was excited to like get to use my gifts. I was excited to share these testimonies and the things that we've learned. And now we just hit this halt, and it's like, God, what? I don't think I understand what just happened. And so I remember just like praying. And in the meantime, the other part of this that was so crazy was, so we felt like we were supposed to keep doing this stuff, and someone had called us and was like, hey, look, I've been praying for you guys, and we had just been giving, trying to stay generous. And someone called and were like, hey, look, I feel like what you guys are doing is incredible. We want to support you $1,300 every month. We're just going to give it to you guys. And then we're going to give you a $10,000 gift on top of that to just keep going and keep doing the ministry you're doing. And I was like, oh, okay, this is amazing. Like maybe I'll try and just build my own magic show, right? Like maybe we'll try and just do this stuff on our own. In the meantime, my wife gets this prophetic word, and someone comes up to my wife just randomly and says, hey, I don't know who you are, but I feel like God's giving you a baby, and it's a testimony you're going to take to the nations. And she's like, what, like, am I pregnant? Like, if not, like, that's kind of mean, God, because, like, we just, like, all this stuff just happened. And then the next Sunday, we go to church, and someone pulls her aside and says the exact same thing. God's giving you a baby, and it's a testimony you're going to take to the nations. And it's like, I was pretty sure the first time, and then you just swept the carpet out, God, so please, like, I don't know if I can handle this again, right? And so we end up just randomly, we're working with these ministries. We end up working with this ministry who helps women in crisis pregnancies. So my wife is the fool of faith one, right? She comes to me one day like, there's this ministry to help women in crisis pregnancies. There's this house with like all pregnant women, and I feel like we're supposed to move in. I'm like, that's the devil. Like, look, I love women, okay? But like one pregnant woman is kind of a lot, right? And now I'm just going to live in the attic of a building with 10. Like, but so we move into this home, and we're helping these girls, and it's so cool because we're taking them to their appointments, helping them get sober. Some of them have CPS cases, and so they've lost their kids. We're trying to help them get their kids back. The one girl specifically, we were trying to help her get her one son back while she was pregnant with the next one. She has him. We're trying to help her raise him, and just literally the one day she's like, hey, I don't think I can do this. Would you guys adopt my son? And we were not planning on adopting. I mean, we had talked about it in the past, but we weren't like thinking this was going to be then. And it was wild because when she asked us to adopt was when we were actually due to have our baby. And so we were like, I mean, of course, like this kid's become family. We're not just going to let him like be abandoned. And she's like, thanks, guys. Here. And I was like, oh, you mean like now? She like went downstairs and like, she walks up to the attic. She's like, here's his diapers and his. I'm like, wait, okay. So like I'm just a dad now. That's all right. So that was the weirdest becoming of a father in 2 seconds. But it was it was amazing because this is just what God does. So now AGT stuff rolls around this next year. And I'm like, well, okay, this is it. God's giving us a baby and it's a testimony to take the nations. We're going to go in here. We're going to tell this adoption story. And we literally go and we bring all of our friends, our missionary friends, and they're praying. Because I'm like, last time I didn't have this many people praying. Now I got people praying. So we walk in. We got the baby. I'm telling the adoption story. And then the trick, like it's just for the producers. It just completely goes wrong. Like just the trick does not work. They put me in the wrong room. There was just a whole bunch of things that I don't got to get into all the details, but it was just a horrible experience. And of course, they're like, nope, looks like you didn't get any better from last year. So now I'm like, are you serious? Like this whole year went by. Again, like God, how can I believe now that there are more layers? Like, aren't you supposed to like prove to me that you can do stuff so then I can have faith? And God's like, no, I think if you start stepping out, it makes room for me to move, but you just have to keep trusting. Because I've already given you the proof, and it's this book called the Bible, where we have the dude with the giant, we have the dude with the sex offense that didn't really do it, right? We have the Savior, the Messiah, who comes down as the homeless guy and then dies. Like, this is who our God is, and God's like, hold true to this, hold true to this, hold true to this. So we actually moved to Virginia Beach, where we met these fine people. That's why we're here. We met them there, and I'm like, all right, we're going to go to Virginia Beach. I'm going to make the show. That $10,000 that someone gave us, we put this all into this show. We're like, I'm gonna make a magic show. God, you provided the funds. We spent everything that we had, and we're gonna move to Virginia Beach, and we're just gonna do tours up and down the East Coast because we lived in Texas, and I'm from Pennsylvania, so we were like, we can kind of just do these little scoops, and Virginia Beach is like the central point. And then the pandemic hit, and I'm like, I just spent $10,000 to do live events, and now we can't do anything. God, you called me to create experiences for people, to share your love with people with my magic, and you keep closing this door. How? Like, this makes no sense. You told me to do it. You said I'm supposed to give you my yes. I've given you my yes over and over and over, and all I see is closed door, traumatic situation, closed door, disappointment. This is not, at least I thought this is not the stuff that I read about, except for the fact that it's always easy to skip over the hard part in the Bible because we know the good part's coming. And so when we're in the middle of the bad part, it's incredibly frustrating and we feel so alone and so isolated. And I felt like God said, Dustin, and it was one of those Job moments where God didn't talk to me very gently. He's like, listen, Dustin, I told you to make a difference with your magic. And I said, I know. And God said, then do it. And I was like, I'm trying. He said, no, you're not. You're trying to do it from a stage. You thought that when I told you to do a thing that it had to be for everybody, and you've forgotten that there's magic right in front of you, and until you understand this, I can't give you this platform. And so there was a dude in our building where we lived in an apartment complex who worked in the leasing office. He was not a Christian. He was going through a lot of stuff, and I felt like God told me, if you are serious about wanting to make a difference with your magic, I want you to go down, and I want you to do a magic trick for this dude every single day that he's at work. 5 days a week, just to go down and do a magic trick for this guy. And I'm like, all right, right? And it's just like, so we go down, and it was like really cool, right? Like, and he's like loving it because he's at work in a, when you're in apartment complexes, I don't want to say that some of God's children are stupid, but like some people are just really annoying to deal with, and he's dealing with them all day long, right? So what happens is like, I start doing these magic tricks, and it's fun, right? We're having a good time. And then I get to like day 30, and I'm like, I'm running out of magic tricks, dude. Like, but from this, there was this incredible relationship that was birthed. And like I said, my wife is the spiritual gangster of this relationship, and she's coming down and she's dropping the Jesus stuff in while I'm like doing these magic tricks. We build this incredible friendship. And after this year of living there, this guy ends up getting sober and giving his life to the Lord and all these things. And it's just, and I realized in that moment, as I've been like, man, am I gonna like win America's Got Talent? Like, this dude just got saved. Someone that I would have normally ignored, and I'm like, what would be the greater celebration? Like, the person who came to find life in Jesus no matter what his circumstances and situations say. Or just people being like, yeah, you won, right? Like, and so it was so crazy because I feel like as God started weeding this stuff out, I felt like I kind of had like this chance to do things differently. And I felt like when this third season of AGT came around that we were like really supposed to fight for it. And this was the first time I felt like God said, no, like fight for this. Oh, and by the way, Dustin, get off of your social media. And I'm like, oh, you just threw that in there. Like, what? How am I supposed to like tell people? And so I end up getting onto America's Got Talent. The first audition, the producers were like, we love your story. Why don't you tell your stories like during your performance instead of just in the interviews. And I was like, for real? Because I was trying to sneak attack you guys with these things. And now you're telling me to do it from the stage? I was like, you don't even know what you just asked for, because... So the whole first performance is about this beautiful adoption, honoring the birth mom who made the hardest decision that any woman could ever make to choose what's best for her child rather than how it would make her look or whatever. The first audition was incredible, and I'm like, what just happened? This was way more than what we ever expected, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the baby, the testimony to take to the nations, the timing of this, our hearts needed to be right. And to just further, with God's timing, what was so wild was that as we're getting ready to go to the live rounds, we get a phone call out of nowhere asking if we will also adopt his older brother. And so we started this America's Got Talent process with one kid. I had this vision before of and then what if we had a kid on America's Got Talent? We end up adopting the other brother on America's, so AGT was planning to come out to Virginia Beach and get a little film some stuff of our life and us just at the beach hanging out and doing different things. Do you know that when we got the call, the same date that they asked if they could bring in the older brother was the same date the film crew was coming, and that film crew got to capture those brothers uniting for the first time? And as I'm sitting here praying about round after round, just praying God, what do we do? What testimony do we tell? I feel like at the end we have to go all the way back to the beginning and tell the story of my parents when their marriage fell apart and all this stuff, and just even more of God's timing. My finale performance where I'm I want to tell the story of why I care about this stuff. It was my parents' anniversary. So I'm telling, on the celebration of their marriage, I am telling the story of how their marriage fell apart and got redeemed because of people showing up. And so I say all this to say that everything that happened on America's Got Talent was not anything that I could have done or constructed. The only thing that I could do was just keep saying yes to God in the midst of these walls that felt like I was being stopped. I had no idea that what was being developed in me was far more important. I had no idea that the timing and what God was setting up was so much more powerful than what I ever could have done. And the problem is that sometimes we lose sight of the power of these things, and we forget that that spirit that now is in us, there's an enemy that exists that we should easily be able to squish, not on our own strength, but because we've been given a spirit that raises people from the dead. So there are victories that we should be having because of that thing in us. And sometimes it's so easy to disqualify ourselves. And I was like, what's a good way to demonstrate this? Maybe with someone who's capable of doing things because they have big muscles and big pecs. And I was like, obviously Andrew. So where's he at? Can we bring him up here? Yeah, bro. Can you come up here?